What's going on, people? What's going on? Thank you for coming through and spending some time with me on this. If you're in the Eastern time zone, it should be 5 p.m. If you are in the West Coast, it should be 2. And if you are in Europe and Spain with me, yo, it's 11 o'clock. So I appreciate you taking the time to spend with me, and just wanted to, give everyone a bit of detail on like what I'm trying to do here and who I am. So for those that don't know, my name is Jermaine L. Murray. You got to say the whole thing like a Tribe Called Quest. But online and on Twitter, y'all know me as a Jobfather. And I'm a recruiter, career coach. My goal is to get as many Black people jobs in tech. Right now, I got an arbitrary goal of 500. And today, we're actually celebrating helping the 420th person, Snoop Dogg. But we've helped the 420th person get a new job in tech. That means we're 80 away from our goal of 500. I couldn't be more excited. I've been on this journey since 2019. So we're 5 years in it, and every single success story has mean more and more to me. So I put together this stream because I wanted to give people a shot at, like, just try to share some knowledge, try to see if I could give some insight, especially knowing what the market looks like. And for everybody that sent in their resume, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm gonna try and get through all of them today, but I won't lie to you, it is quite a few of them. So whatever I'm not able to get through, I will make sure that we have a second one of these, and however many more. But I know Twitter actually you're not able to do a live post, so I'll be going off of what your resumes that you sent in. Um, I'm waiting for us to just get a few more eyes in here before we kick off. But I do want to say that when I was looking through the resumes and when I was looking through the emails, I noticed that a lot of people had questions around interviews and questions in like, how do I answer the tell me about yourself question, or how do I answer this? How do I answer that? And I will touch on some of that. To be real with you, with that first question, that tell me about yourself question. Um, Recruiters and hiring managers aren't necessarily looking for your life story. If you've heard of the term elevator pitch, that's essentially what they're looking for. They want to know who you are, what you're good at, and oh, I actually can see the live stream comments on Twitter. So y'all feel free to comment. For some reason the YouTube wasn't working. I'm gonna have to look into that. So we're live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. YouTube is still a work in progress. So I'm gonna have to email the broadcasters and see like why that was, and we will get it fixed up for the next one. But I appreciate y'all for coming through. So you can actually post comments, and I can see them here. So if any questions pop up, feel free to like comment on it. Be more than happy to hit them up or like answer them as they come along. But yeah, I'll answer the how do I answer the tell me about yourself question, and we'll jump into some resumes, and then we'll jump back and forth. I foresee this only going on for about an hour. There will be a recording, and these do live live on Twitter. So, if you miss it or if you have to hop out, don't be afraid. You can always just rewind and see what's good. Now, the tell me about yourself question, right? That's a question that seems to trip everybody up because they don't know if they're supposed to give like a full biography or they're just supposed to give like little tidbits. And my explanation for that is simply it's your elevator pitch, right? You're supposed to tell them who you are, what you're good at, why you're good at that company in about 2 to 3 sentences, right? And the more you can make it keyed or unique to that company, either their product, their team, their service, their industry, the better it's going to be, right? So let's say me as a recruiter going for a fintech company. The last full-time employer I had was a fintech company. Shout outs to Well Simple. I believe in my Well Simple interview, actually, I said, I'm the type of recruiter that is passionate about advocating for people from marginalized backgrounds who often get overlooked but can do the job. And I'm looking for my next opportunity to be in a place that would not only promote that, but also encourage that. And I won't face any backlash for getting candidates that have often been overlooked a look and giving them a fair shot. And if you hire me or if you bring me on the team, I'm somebody that's going to help you hire as many Black people as possible. And I just need to be clear, do you have a problem with that? Will you help or will you hinder that? And that last line is exactly what I said, because I was tired of past interviewers or companies always giving me shit for just trying to advocate for Black people. And luckily, I was lucky, they were lucky. The hiring manager responded really well to that. She was one of the most authentic, tell me about your question, tell me about yourself answers that she's ever heard. So just giving a little bit about yourself, wrapping it up neatly, not going too deep, just telling them maybe a little bit what your path, your history looks like, or just leading into why you're good for that job and just making it as like succulent as possible. All right. Got over 200 folks in here. Shout outs to you for making the time. We're going to jump into some resumes now. So before I jump into the resume, I'll just say this. When I look at a resume, I'm looking at it from like 3 to 5 different categories. So the first category is just straight up, how easy is it for me to read, right? Not even just in terms of that whole recruiter scanning it, but like some people pack their resumes in with too much text and there's not enough white space and it can be hard to like read it. You might have to like squint or zoom in, and that kind of takes away from like how effective the resume is. The next thing I look for is how effective are you when you are talking about your impacts or your achievements. So essentially, like, yo, can you actually detail what it is that you did, why it's important, and in what context are you able to, again, explain that in a resume? And a resume can be challenging because it's all condensed, you know what I'm saying? So you have a short amount of time or a short window to really, like, in some cases, detail what you've been doing over the span of 10 years. So if you're struggling with your resume, don't take it to heart. It is a bit of a balancing act. The next thing I look at is overall like what the theme of your resume is, right? And this one's a little bit more abstract, but if I'm a fintech company, I want to know, like, do you have the fintech industry as a niche, or do you have our particular stack as a niche, right? And that helps you stand out because it makes you seem like the quote unquote perfect candidate. In recruitment, we have this joke about purple squirrels. Like, the perfect candidate is a purple squirrel. You never see a purple squirrel. And that means that you're getting somebody that has a great personality, somebody that's great at their job, and somebody that you can afford. And the challenge is that you literally only get 2 of those 3, right? Either they're good at their job and you can afford them and they got a crappy personality, or they got a good personality, you can afford them, but they're not so good at their job, or they got a good personality, they're great at their job, but you can't afford them. And usually that's the like trifecta that recruiters are faced with when it comes across candidates and people that they want to hire. So you want to always like try to articulate yourself to be towards that niche. Again, team, industry, product, or service, right? I give my grading scale out of 10, and I do use the digits like the old school IGN. So I might say like a 7.5 or like a 10 or like a 9.5, 9.2, 9.3, etc. Right? Anything under a 7.5 isn't necessarily bad, just needs a lot of improvement. Anything above a 7.5 is, effective. And anything above an 8 or a 9 is like really effective. And if you're not getting callbacks, then like there might be a difference in your approach or in your timing. So now that we got that all out the way, let us start off with our first resume. And hold up. Just going to share my screen real quick. Awesome. So shout outs to Steven. Steven, if you're watching this, shout outs to you. You were the first person to send your resume through, and I appreciate that. So I'm just going to zoom in so we can all see clearly. Right off the bat, I do like that Steven's resume is a page long. I like that there's effective use of white space. It's not too hard to see the things and that he's trying to show. I will say that just from a um, yes, this will be recorded and I will upload it to YouTube later. It was supposed to be a YouTube live. But back to Steven's resume. So um, I think overall, like just from a first glance, this is a pretty decent sized resume. Some of the things that I would notice or ask for is I know since Steven is still a student or he's still an intern, he's still doing internships. I understand the need or the want to add your education at the top. Some people go 50-50 on this. To me, I'm like, if you have enough projects or if you have enough like internships, you can put your education at the bottom of the resume. And I would actually put my skills at the top. And the reason being is that if you think about how people are reading the resume, the skills, having the skills at the top kind of sets the framework for their mind and allows them to like look or understand what kind of keywords that they may be looking for, or maybe on the lookout for relative to their jobs. And then when you go into the experience, you are reaffirming that initial impression by giving context around those specific keywords. So I would definitely move this up into the top because then we would go right into the experience here, right? So I do like how initially all of the experiences do have quantifiers. Now, this has been something that I've been talking a lot about on Twitter, is that you can't just fall in love with the percentages, right? Because percentages are tricky. You know what I'm saying? Like, unless you have extra context around them, they are not going to be as effective as you might hope, right? So, like for here, for example, engineer and deployed a salary prediction model using Flask, achieving a 90% accuracy rate and enhancing salary structure by 30%. What does that really mean, right? What does that really mean? And it's a bit fluffy because there is no real context around what that 90% looked like. Was that, what was the year over year prior, right? What are we actually talking about here? So the 90% is kind of up in the air. And like, I don't have I don't know this company. And I do like that he does hyperlink it out, but I don't know this company. And because I don't know this company, I don't have a framework to work with on like what this 90% might actually mean, right? It could be 90% of 10, which is just nine. It could be 90% off a million, which is like 900,000. So like the scale here is pretty big, but like it's very ambiguous. And because it's ambiguous, I kind of just glance over it. Now, I do like how he has, like, if you see this bulletin here, though, this is an effective use of a percentage because it's backed up by context, right? Talks about the fraud detection web app, reduced fraud instance by 30%. That on its own, that wouldn't do anything. But then he talks about saving the organization $50,000 annually. That is effective. That gives me context. So now when I think about that 30%, I know that 30% ended up saving the org 50,000, right? If I take that 50,000 and I 3x it, that's 150,000. Call it 200,000, for just doing rough math here of like what the overall fraud incidences may be. Like I have some context here, even if my math is off, right? So it's unfortunate though that 20%, I mean that kind of approach isn't backed up in the rest of these experiences and mentorness, right? Because again, we just fall into the trap of these percentages, which again, without that context, I don't find really effective. You know what I'm saying? And I think we have to be careful again about falling into the trap about just percentages. And in some cases, we got to be careful about repeating ourselves as well when it comes to our experience. Because you've already said this up here. I understand that you maybe you want to send things off into like your actual GitHub to see it directly, but this just seems like filler, right? and you got to kind of commit. Either it's all up here or it's all down here, or you highlight different kinds of projects, or maybe even extracurriculars of sorts. But looking overall at this resume, I give it about a 6.5. I think that the template in itself is clean. Skills needs to go up a little bit higher. Certs and educations can go down, can go on the bottom. Project highlights repeat itself, so that's a ding right there. And if you had more bullet points that flowed like this, the resume would be much more effective. But as of right now, it's about a 6.5, right? Okay. As I get the next one loaded up, any questions so far, please feel free to post it in the chat. Happy to answer them. But like, yeah, that was our first resume. So, shout outs to you, Stephen. Thank you for participating. I greatly appreciate it. Let's go to the next one. Angela. Angela is a solutions architect. That means Angela be doing some big important things. Shout outs to Angela, because without people like you, oh my God, who knows what project would be like, right? So in terms of template, this is a bit of a long resume. So 3 pages is all right. 3 pages is all right if you are senior enough. The most important thing, though, on any multi-page resume is to realize that the first page is the most important page. So we always want to prioritize that. And looking through here, one thing I would say is that I'm not the biggest fan of how Angela has her experience kind of set out in these paragraphs. I will answer that question in just a second. But like, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of how Angela has the experience set up here. I would get, and I think, again, the first page is the most important page, and the first half of the first page is the most important real estate, right? And I think just from a setup standpoint, I know Angela kind of has, she hasn't outright done it, but the way her resume is segmented, there's like a use of like a column here, right? And that kind of has all the information kind of squished up, which makes it a bit harder to read and a bit harder to like separate her individual stats. So one of the first things I would do is I would kind of get rid of the invisible second column that we have here, and I would scrap the professional summary. And I would just go straight into the area of expertise and then the technology skills, and then right into the experience. Now, this is why it's also important for us to leverage some sort of separator, bullet points, arrows, something, because this block of text is just really, it's kind of really hard to read, right? And not having that white space kind of makes it hard to almost skim as well. And I know a lot of people be like, recruiters, do your job, don't skim, read the damn resume. But like, you gotta realize how to kind of play the game here. And part of that is making it easier for the people that you want to like pass your resume on to have an easier time reading your resume. It's just the way it is. I don't think it should be like that. I wish everybody's resume got read effectively and there wasn't this whole 7 to 10 second stupid ass rule, but it's just is the way it is, right? It comes down from external pressure. People have to figure out how to properly, go through all the list of shit that they got to do. It is what it is, right? So I think, definitely breaking these up into bullet points or even different lines would go well. And again, if you got rid of the invisible column here, everything kind of gets stretched out and we can kind of use that more. So the other thing is that Angela doesn't really have any real quantifiers until maybe her third or fourth sentence. I like the use of the highlighting the actual technology tools, but even then, it almost reads like a job description because there's no quantifiers around it, right? Now, I do like that we do have this 10.7 million here, right? That is an amazing number. That's an amazing context. And I kind of wish we had more of those lines there because I think it would be amazing. I think that would really give us insight into what's been going on. And Angela kind of follows that outlook, you know, throughout the entire resume. And I do like that there's a quant here, right? Absolute numbers are a great way. Absolute numbers and dollars, great way to add as quantifiers. Um, Now, the third page is all of her educations and her stats, which I think is really cool. Um, I think this as a third page is actually pretty nice. I would actually move all of the GitHub and the LinkedIn and all that to the top of the resume, right? Maybe beside the name, your name, like under here with the space. I know you probably scrubbed it for the simple fact of like, you know, we don't want to be putting your business out like that. But like even like hyperlinking up here would definitely, in my opinion, go quite a bit of ways. Um, but I don't like how the text is formed here. And I don't like how there is a lack of quantifiers. I also think that because of the age of some of these jobs, they don't need to all be the same amount, right? So, like for instance, you've been at Red Hat for 4 years now, right? Going on five because we're closer to the end of the year than the beginning of the year, right? If you really think about it, this should be like where you have this should be like the most detailed paragraph by far, right? And if you even look at the spacing too, this here is scrunched up versus the rest of these kind of being more spaced out line wise. Again, I think bullet points would have done well. I also again want to say like because you don't really have quantifiers here, a lot of the stuff that you have here reads like a actual job description and not so much actual like statements of achievements. Think of your resumes as just one big ass statement of achievements, right? It's literally your brag sheet. You're bragging about the stuff that you accomplished. And when you don't have quantifiers, you know, that kind of takes away from that. So one thing if I wanted to get this down to like 2 pages, or maybe if I kept it at three, I definitely would remove the summary, fix the spacing. Um, I would the skills here and areas of expertise are kind of doing the same thing. And because the skills are more I want to say the skills are more because they're less technical. I feel like there's less of an emphasis that we need here. So I think you can even scrap the skills, maybe plug two or yeah, maybe two of these up here, right? And keep it moving. The software is good, the languages is good. And then if you go inside the experience, that plus the spacing allows you to have a lot more information here that's more easily digestible, right? The other thing, when I say theme as well, I think everybody should have a theme. And like when I work with a lot of solution architects, for example, the last solution architect I worked with, I told them that, you know, for a theme, you kind of want to communicate to people that you like as a solution architect, you're not just like a super advanced, super sane software developer, right? You're literally the problem solver, right? A solution architect isn't just, you know, doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that is skilled in one particular language or approach. A solution architect should be somebody that can come in and be like, this is a situation from a business case. This is the tech debt that they have. You know, they want to build out this. This is the best programming language they should use. They should use this type of methodology. They should use this type of deployment, and they should have these type of resources in terms of people staffed on it. And you're building out a specific strategy unique to that environment. So you kind of want to. I feel like you would want to better communicate that kind of adaptability. And again, anything that's older than 5 years, my general rule, if it's older than 5 years, it doesn't need as much detail as the more recent stuff. And that's why I'm like, you know, you should put more effort into highlighting what's going on at Red Hat, and everything here, like you could reduce by like 2 sentences, right? It could just literally be like the parts that I'm highlighting are the parts that you should and can get rid of, right? Especially here. This is gigantic. So maybe you want to keep the notable projects, or maybe you want to kind of fiddle around with it. But I like a lot of this is very dense, and again, it's not neat. It doesn't have to be that dense specifically. Love the education, love the certs, love the podcast as well. If you do want to like shout out the podcast, send me an email. More than happy to shout the podcast out. Love it when techies got podcasts because y'all got really good opinions. Y'all know what you're talking about, and it's just a fun conversation to hear. Enough with the Joe Buttons and the shits and giggles. All right, let's go to the next resume. Angela, thank you so much for submitting. I'm going to go to the next one, but before I hop over to the next one, I see that we got some questions in this resume is blank. Ashanti, if you're watching, the resume that you sent me is blank, so unfortunately we cannot use that. Let me just load up one more resume, and then I will answer some questions that we have in the chat here. So Alana Ray asks, could you talk about the one-page only resume rule? Is that a real thing? No, it's not a real thing, but it is something that gets confused. So I just mentioned it with Angela's resume. I think 2 to 3 pages is okay, especially if you have the experience for it. But everyone should be aware that the first page is the most important page, right? It's the page that's going to get the most attention. It's the one that's going to be scrutinized the most. It's the one that is going to allow the hiring managers or the recruiters to like make that strong impression of you. If you have a weak first page, you have a weak impression on the recruiter. The reason why it gets confused with the one page only thing is because not everyone needs a multi-page resume. I tell the story all the time about like one of the first times that I bought, like I paid someone to do my resume. I spent like my last $600 and they gave me a 6-page resume for 6 months of experience. That was just absurd, right? If you have like 10, 15 years, even sometimes like maybe like 7 or 8, and you just went to a lot of different places, if you're having trouble condensing all that, I think going to 2, 3 pages absolutely max is fine. However, the strength of that resume is going to come from that first page. And that's why it's so important. And that's why that's kind of gotten dumbed down to this one page only thing. But like, yeah, after the first page, there's a lot of diminishing returns when you go on. Thank you so much for coming through, Alana Ray. Shanae asks, can you talk about how to connect with hiring managers on LinkedIn after applying for a role? Yeah, I'll talk about it briefly. Not like shameless plug in my last newsletter, which I will which I will share the link to later. I do talk about and I do give out scripts on how to connect with hiring managers. But the best thing that you can do is go on LinkedIn, and what you could do is you can go on Chat GPT, put the job description in Chat GPT, and then ask Chat GPT what the title of the hiring manager would be for this job. Then go on LinkedIn, go on the company directory, and then search up the people that have those titles and shoot your shot at as many of them as possible. If barring that, you can also use like Boolean string searches to find people. Again, that's in the newsletter that I just launched. I will give you all the link and you can check it out on your own as well. Let me know what you think. But we did have quite a few strategies and templates on what to do. All right, let's go to the next question. Why cut out a professional summary for a lot of people trying to break into and transition? Wouldn't that space on the resume convey your why? That is a good question, Jolie. Hope I'm saying the name correct. And I would say that if that is your intent, you are better off writing a cover letter, because trying to explain your why in 2 to 3 sentences, 1 sentence, or even like a whole blown paragraph, taking up like a big chunk of the most important real estate on your resume, it doesn't make sense. You are literally better off putting that towards the like in a cover letter. A cover letter is much more appropriate for conveying that. And a cover letter gives you much more space to operate. And a cover letter allows you to properly tell the story and make the connection. I say this to someone that hates cover letters, by the way, but like if that is what the professional summary is for, you are better off doing a cover letter and letting the resume be the resume. Does the cover letter count? Oh, my bad, Jolie. Thank you for coming through. I appreciate you. Thank you for chiming in. W asks, just West Side. Okay, my bad. I didn't mean to be corny. Does the cover letter count towards that 2 to 3 page rule? No, the cover letter is completely separate. There have been applications that I've come across where they will ask you to include the cover letter in the resume, and usually they'll outline like what their max is, but even then they usually don't. So the 2 to 3 page rule does not include the cover letter. And again, the most important page on that resume is always going to be the first page. W, thank you for coming through. I appreciate you for asking your question. Folks, don't be shy. Hit me up in the chat. More than happy to answer any questions you have towards the resume process, interviews, careers. This is like an open forum. Happy to share the space. So back to our resumes over here. I hope I'm saying the name correctly. One last question before we move on. How long should a cover letter be? 500 to 1,000 words. No. A cover letter shouldn't be more than 200, 300 words, to be real with you. A cover letter should be brief, straight to the point. It shouldn't take up too much space, right? Try to keep it within a page, double spaced even maybe. But like, yeah, I would say you want to cap that out about like 300 max. Because a cover letter, again, they will skim the cover letter just like they'll skim the resume, and you don't want to overwhelm them, right? If there's too much information, they'll just outright skip the cover letter. And a lot of recruiters, reason why I'm not the biggest fan of cover letters, because a lot of recruiters admit to just skipping over the damn cover letter in the first place. And it's like, why the fuck did I write this? But if you are writing a cover letter and you want the extreme, like, and you want to maximize the chances of it getting read, keep it brief, make it interesting, and make it an addition to the resume, not something that repeats the resume. Q, thank you so much for coming through. I appreciate you. All right. I hope I'm saying the name right. Nawame, thank you for submitting your resume. Appreciate it. So at first glance, when it comes to the resume itself, I think it's clean. I like this format quite a bit. The only complaints I would have just on that initial read is I would move the skills and I would move your awards at the top. Now, I don't believe in professional summaries, but I do believe in key career highlights. And because again, that sets the tone of what to expect. If you are an award-winning developer, you know what I'm saying, that sets the tone for the resume. And it's like, think about like the psychology of someone reading it. Like you're an award-winning developer, then you get your key skills and you got all the skills that we're looking for in the job. And then the experience, when you jump right into it, gives us context of how you use those skills in the workplace and the achievements that you've had with them to have an impact, right? That is psychologically powerful, right? Especially when we're thinking about like that first impression that we want to lock in. So on first glance, I would move your skills and I'd move your certifications and awards at the top. But otherwise, I like how you jump right into the meat and the potatoes of it, the professional summary. Love the hyperlink of the GitHub. Love the hyperlink of the LinkedIn. And let's see where you've been at. So again, first bullet point, I'm a big fan of because she has a quantifier, but the quantifier isn't just a percentage. The quantifier is time-based, right? Spearheaded delivery of critical features for split cache, completing development in just 2 months and a month ahead of schedule. One thing that I would encourage everybody to do on their resume, unless you are coming from a very well-known company like a Google, a Netflix, or whatever, you should right above in between the job description, the company and your job title, you should have a little bit of a what I call as a company overview, just like a sentence and a half explaining what the company is, where it's located, all that. Like, you know, if you said something like Split Cash is a fintech startup that helps earners under 50K, you know, say max out their 401ks, right? just having something like that gives me context, understanding of like, the company, the size, industry, what you do. So I would say have a company overview if you can squeeze one in. Barring that, love the fact that this is completing development in just 2 months, a month ahead of schedule. Chef kiss. Love that bullet point. Love the time-based stuff. Developed and deployed over 10 additional key features in split cache Android post-launch using Kotlin, Android framework. Beautiful use of a quantifier and a beautiful use of interweaving the actual technology, leading to around 50 new daily users. Beautiful use of absolute numbers and a 30% user retention rate. Oh, shoot, I forgot. I did not give Angela a grade. Angela, your resume is a 5.5 out of 10. Just for reasons I mentioned. Noame, back to you. Um, implemented virtual card feature for online transaction, boosting monthly users to 10,000 within a quarter, with a 233% increase from the previous quarter. I love this percentage because it tells us what the year over year is from the last quarter. Sorry, what the 233% is off, right? A lot of times people would have just said like a 233% increase, but like telling me from the previous quarter gives me an idea of what we're actually talking about. In addition to the absolute number that's used about the monthly active user acquisition, right? It comes together brilliantly. I love that. Strengthen app stability by implementing state persistence throughout the app to curtail crash issues. Do low memory on Android devices, reducing app crashes to near 0%. Shout outs to Noame because I love this percentage. It is not often you see someone utilize a 0%, right? We're always trying to go for big percentages. I love the 0% and how it's used in this context because it tells me of a success rate. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if I don't know how many users this particular app has, right? I do know that we all want a near 0% crash rate, right? Nothing's more embarrassing than your app crashing. So she's killing it right now. Optimize split cache Android app performance, reducing API requests by 35%, minimizing view hierarchies in XML for smoother rendering and improvement responsiveness. This is a bit ambiguous here. Um, but I think because it works, I think it's fine because it works well in the greater context of things, right? Onboarding new user, resolving pain points, creating a 90% reduction in user complaints. This is also a little ambiguous. I think it would have helped to talk a little bit how many you got last year, but like I ain't mad at it, right? And she clearly goes through, or they, sorry, I don't know if Noam, I don't, sorry, Noami, they go through, they keep that kind of mindset and they rotate their quantifiers throughout their resume. You know what I'm saying? And I think this is amazing. To me, this is a resume I would easily give a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. I think it could have been a 10 just by tweaking the location of this stuff here. But this is a really good resume. The only thing I would add is, like I said, the company overviews. And I know you got your GitHub, but I think you should also have a portfolio that kind of has a blog feature that kind of gives us more insight into, again, how you're approaching problems, your favorite projects to work on. Just adds a little bit more personality than a GitHub. But like this 9.5 resume, folks, this is a good example of what a great resume looks like. Maybe the only thing I said too is that, nah, you know what? The theme here is that they are a hardcore Android developer. Um, I don't like the freelance because I feel like people don't appreciate or respect freelance as much as they should. So instead of freelance, put consulting, or like put the name of your consultancy or your actual like business there. Makes it seem more credible, makes it seem more legitimate. But yo, shout outs to you. This is an amazing resume. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing it. So far, this is the best resume that I've seen thus far. All right. Let's go back. Let's go to the next one. As I'm lining up the next one, let's see. 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 Let's see Let's see what we have. Any more? No questions yet. All right. Oh, whoops. I see. Okay. So Oyen, thank you so much for sending this in. Let's see what we have here. So I would say career highlights, skills and expertise, University of Calgary. Okay. 2 pages, not bad. So one of the first things I would say is, again, we're taking up very valuable real estate by just, you know what I'm saying, like having this big chunk of text here. Um, I think what you're trying to achieve with this professional summary, you've already achieved with your career highlights here. You know what I'm saying? So if I was you, I would just literally just scrap this and go straight for my career highlights. It does quite a bit of like helping you stand out. I love the skills and expertise, and then I love the um, jump into the actual experience. It's something you should be careful though, right? Try not to repeat the exact same terminology or the exact same line that you have here, right? We never want to like reuse stuff, right? Because it's just filler, and like it makes someone go, "What the hell did I just do? I got some deja vu." Like it kind of distracts them and throws them off, right? So if you're gonna highlight them at the top, either find a new way to spin it, or you don't include it in your actual experience here, right? You don't actually include it in your experience here, or again, you find some new way to spin it. But outside of that, I do like, again, your use of percentage is decent because we got the additional context here that makes it, pop, makes me understand it a little bit more. I do like the refined branding and overall the UI of DLR's Cabin Fever conference website. Driving, yep, these are good use of percentages. Again, that additional context carries the percentage, right? It's not enough to just say you increase it. You got to know what the actual increase is. I think having some sort of time, like a year over year, or even like comparing it to a quarter, like the last one, would have been really good. Enhance and maintain the design, integrated over 25 reusable components. Good use. One thing I actually really like too is that they've been deliberate in bolding out the achievements. Now this is good because if somebody is skimming your resume, their eyes are automatically drawn to like the parts that are bolded. You know what I'm saying? So like if someone is skimming, they're always gonna like stop and read the bolded over and kind of like again bank that in, and that helps with that first impression. Um, this stuff here is a bit light, especially if you're going to bold something, we got to have a quantifier, right? So I got to know how many usability tests or accessibility evaluations or what kind of evaluations that they specifically were. When we say accessibility evaluations, what type of accessibility are we talking about? Like there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it. Let's see. I like that you have the industries here as well. I think that's actually a really good smart call out. Especially if like you find yourself working in an industry for like a long time, it helps sets up that niche. It helps sets you up as something unique because you have that type of experience. Um, Digital designer, 4% increase in conversion rates, not bad. Love the use of the absolute compared combined with the percentage that's here, right? Little bit of a spacing issue, right? Because you want everything to be consistent. So either they should all be underneath like here, right? Or they should be like spread out on the one particular line. That's a bit of a nitpick, but like in this day and age, yo, real talks, we people be nitpicky. And I just noticed that you didn't really scrub all your information from here. So like hopefully no one gives you a prank call. Please don't harass Oyen. But but going through, yeah, and like you start losing, like especially towards this end, there are no real metrics here. These are a bit more generalities. I think your technical skills should be at the top, right? In fact, if you just want to like switch technical skills and place it right here, I'd love that. But overall, I think this is a decent resume. I'd give this a 7.8. It would have been a strong 8 if it wasn't for some of the formatting issues. And I'm guessing part of that is because you sent it over as a doc. So like we're not seeing the best of it, because if it was a PDF, it would have been consistent. But I appreciate you for coming through and sharing that. I'm just switching over so we can just load up the next resume. Um, okay, another doc. So, folks, I'm going to encourage you to send over, you know, oops. Oh, 1 second, my bad. I accidentally closed it. So, folks, I'm going to encourage you to just always send your resume as a PDF. You maintain the integrity of the resume. You make sure that it always pops up on screen the way that you want it to be popping up. And like it's just easier to have it in a different view. Hey Marilyn, what's up? How you doing? Good to see you again. Well, I'm not seeing you, but you know what I mean. All right, so we have someone from Jamaica. Wagwan. I wish I had my flag around here. It's around here somewhere. But and really like, so we'll start off with here. Okay, so we have the education at the top. Um, so I don't think you need to put anything beyond your college or university. You didn't need to put the high school GED. When we go into the actual experience in itself, I see. So I would say that your resume doesn't need to be 2 pages. I don't know exactly what job you're going for, but based off of the stuff that you've been doing with KPMG, I would say that you're trying to go risk management, project admin, right? So I think any other job outside of this that you have should be around risk management or project administration. And if it's not directly aligned with those jobs that you go to, or sorry, with those jobs that you're pursuing, they should outline the specific stuff that you did that's relevant to the next job that you're going for, right? Because I can kind of understand why you might put like a sales rep, operations manager, as someone that's trying to admin a project. You know, being an ops manager has a lot of small and large projects that you're responsible for, that they have lots of stakes. So it does make quite a bit of sense. However, like there is like again, we didn't need the AT&T experience. Folks, I would also say like try to avoid this type of formatting. Not saying that you did, but this formatting is now like a tell-all for like use of chat gpt, right? If it has the keywords and then it has the actual explanation of how they're used, it's kind of shouting chat gpt-ish. I know this is in the skills, so it's not as bad, but just as a heads up going forward. I think your skills, the soft skills, I don't think you really need outside of maybe the financial analysis. You want to emphasize these technical and these hard skills, and you want to move your education to the bottom and these skills at the top. When it comes to the actual experience itself, you don't have any quantifiers. So that is also a problem. We need quantifiers to detail just like what your impact was and how strong it was. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need to have an idea of how complex the stuff that you were doing, the stakes that were involved, how big the wins were, in what context the wins were in. And there isn't any here, right? Even as like a CSM or a sales rep, you should have some sort of quantifiers around either customer satisfaction, amount of sales that you generated. If you're an ops manager, we want to talk about efficiency. So a lot of time-based metrics would be really good. We don't really got much here. Um, Even when you look at like what you're doing for KPMG, oops, my bad. Even when you're looking at what you're doing for KPMG here, everything kind of reads very generic, right? I don't got any context as to like what type of clients you're talking to, how many you're talking to, how big the clients are, where the clients are located. Like there's it's too general here and it can't be effective, right? So overall, I think I give this resume about like a 6, maybe a 5.5. But I do appreciate you coming through and sharing that. Thank you very much. Okay, I have another question in here. So I'm going to load up the next one, and like I said, folks, feel free to chime in. Let us know. Let me know if you have any questions. We'll pop them off in the chat. We have about 10 minutes left, and I don't think I'm going to get through all the resumes. We had 44 resumes when I started. Now we're at 39. So I think we're gonna have to do a couple more streams to get through everything. But I still appreciate y'all here. We got over 1,000 people in this room right now, which is crazy. So shout outs to y'all for coming through. I appreciate it. I feel so humbled that you would even spend the time with me. Share the screen. Share my screen. All right, Chimera. So when I'm going through here, really good job in scrubbing the resume. I think this might be the best scrubbed resume we've had thus far. Okay. So right off the bat, I would say that I do like that it is a nice, condensed, and tight 2 pages. Again, I would say the first thing I want to get rid of is this professional summary, these profile summaries. I just think that, if you want to tell this type of story, if it's not told throughout your resume, tell it in a cover letter. You know what I'm saying? But I like the key skills here, right? Love the audit and compliance. Love that you listed out the certifications or like the compliance sets right beside them. I love the type of like data and privacy that you're outlining, GDPR, GAPP. Like these are really big, especially like if you're doing overnational or interseas stuff or overseas or international stuff or anything that has to do with like the EU. Really good with the key skills part. I don't even think these would count as key skills. I guess they would. I would call them core skills, but like that's me just being a bit nitpicky. Petroleum. See, this is what I was talking about when I said like you should have a company overview, right? Petroleum is a petroleum company who sells fuel to major towns and cities in Zimbabwe. Major role in the organization is to conduct internal audits, to verify compliance with policies, procedures, assessing the design of operating effectiveness of internal control structure. So this is great, right? They've been able to mix together a company overview and a role overview. Gives me context as to the actual company itself and also the role and what they do. So now when I go in, I understand what it is that they actually do, right? Again, so I would say just be careful about not having the quantifiers here. You achieved in reduction in operational. So I like that. Again, we have a percentage, but we have the context around understanding that percentage. Again, compliance rating, really good. Prepare comprehensive audits, enhancing on average. So I feel like there's a bit of an over-reliance on percentages here. Again, percentages are good, especially when you have context, but even when you have context, having too many of them back to back, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but like, and no disrespect, it can be a bit of a boring read in that sense that like it's just achievement after achievement. It's just not achievement, it's just percentage after percentage after percentage, right? Want to mix it up. It'd be great to know everything about like again, money, or you talked about operational procedures, right? Give me time-based metrics, things of that would be really good here. I like the key achievement. I like highlighting the key achievements, and you do use absolute numbers here as well, which is bueno, love it. I will say that, and because like I actually highlight key achievements and deliverables separately on my resumes too when I'm writing them. So like I love to see it. The only thing I would say is that if this is like your key achievement, and this is like your biggest flex, it shouldn't be at the bottom of your first page. It should be it should be right underneath the senior internal auditor title. Like, I want to know what your key achievements are, right? Your best wins, and then I want to know what all the other stuff looks like, right? Here, it just looks like it's squeezed in. I will also say too that, like, your resume is very condensed. It's not too overwhelming, right? But I think it's like really up at the border. So like, I think you could lose like 2 bullets here, and kind of space things out just a little bit, so it's a bit easier to read or a bit easier to breathe. Again, I think scrapping this profile thing here at the top would give you the space to like make things breathe a little bit more. And like, you kind of take that same approach with the other jobs. Again, I love to see that something else other than a percentage is here throughout. So I actually think that this is a bit stronger than this role here, just because of like more diversity in your achievements. I like that you have your cybersecurity and you're hyperlinking to them. Now, the only thing I would say is that you should have some sort of projected target amount, or like projected result, or like, when you what you're building in terms of scale or scope, to your projects, right? Like, it's projected to help save people X amount of dollars. It's projected to help save people X amount of time, right? Don't just like write out briefs of like what they are. Tell us what they're supposed to do, and like add that as a success metric to make it really pop. I think your technical skills should go at the top. Your certs and educations are good. So overall, yeah, this is a really good resume. I give it a strong 7.5. Thank you again for sharing. And I'm just gonna hop over. We'll get the next one ready. We have time for one more. When is the next stream? Uh I don't want to. It's a TBD, but depending on like how y'all are liking it, if you guys really really like what we're going on here, it might be later on this week or it might be next week. Again, just really grateful you're even taking the time to spend with me. But yeah, like, we will have the next stream soon. I think I think my goal is to be just to go through all the resumes that you sent me, and then we can move on to like for after this quote unquote season, we'll move on to like interview questions properly as well. Okay, let's see what we got with this one. Anthony. Anthony scrubbed the resume. Yes, sir. I love it. All right. Achievements. Effectively managed land and U.S. government IT resources for 16 years. That is a good achievement. The rest, not so much, because they're very general, right? Again, you quantified this line with the 16 years. If you put like an average satisfaction score, or even if you even put like what sectors or how big your clients were, that would have been great. I like that it is 2 pages. We don't need references available upon request. Another person from Jamaica. Love it, love it, love it. Again, a lot of people from Jamaica. Let's see what we got here. So I'll say this: when you have your experience spanning such a long time at a company, to me, this company, this experience should be the entire first page. Like, the entire first page should be dedicated to it. Because again, my rule is anything older than 5 years, the only thing it's really confirming, or like only really positive thing that you're showing me, is tenure. You know what I'm saying? Because if you like, let's think about it. 5 years ago was 2019, right? The world was a completely different place in 2019. That was the first Trump presidency, and hopefully the last one. COVID wasn't a thing. The Toronto Raptors were actually competitive. It's 2019 September. Okay, yeah, we were like semi-competitive. We were in our defending champion season. Um, Housing was affordable in Toronto. You know what I'm saying? Like, the world can change in 5 years. So like, all putting experience on your resume for 5 years does for me is just confirm tenure. You know what I'm saying? So with that said, the stuff that you've been doing that's more recent should have more attention. And if you've been at one place, we should have a lot more detail about like your wins, the size of the network issues that you were facing. We should know we should know high level or title wise some of the VIPs that you were interacting with, or some of the VIPs that you were responsible for supporting. And you kind of do, don't get me wrong, you kind of do have it here, but like I think one of the biggest problems I'm finding is that outside of maybe this line right here and this line here, right? You don't have much quantifiers for your resume. And also, if you're going to do 2 pages, commit to doing 2 pages. Don't leave a bunch of space here. That's why I'm like, you should specifically, Anthony, space the resume out and have the first page be dominated by here. I think you should also have like a key skills part, right? If you're doing information system managing, right? All this RAID SAN stuff, LAN, the LAN stuff, Linux servers, DHCP, all the networking stuff should be in a nice technical table. Kind of like, again, giving us an idea of like what we're working towards, or like what we're seeing, rather than just being as kind of generic as is. And then like, again, not having the actual quantifiers, to me, is doing a disservice to the experience that you have. So like for like someone that's working in information system, I want to know how big your networks are. I want to know like how effective you made them. I want to know if you're the reason why they can run things remotely. I want to know what kind of automation deployments, if any, that you have, right? When you talk about presentations at offsite locations, how big are the presentations? How big are the crowds at the presentations, right? Things of that nature. And I think that's all missing. And I think that does a disservice to what you're doing. Even your teaching experience, right? You can even talk about like how big your classes were, right? Because like, I don't know if you had a class of 10 students or 10,000, or I don't know if you're like an actual full-blown lecturer, right? So we got to get specific here, or people are not going to give you the props that you deserve. When it comes to your resume, when it comes to your interviews, one thing that you should always realize is that people are always going to approach you with a level of skepticism right out the gate, because they are trained to be skeptic, and you have to kind of overcome that skepticism in order to make them feel like you can do the job. You are the right person for the job. And if we don't have our stats to back us up, we will not be able to overcome that skepticism. So, Stephen, I'm going to give your resume a 6. But I do appreciate you for like, what I'm saying, like sending this my way and sharing it with us. I do appreciate that. And folks, we are at the 1 hour mark. Stop sharing for a sec. So any other last minute questions in the chat, please let me know. I'm gonna hang around for like until like the 1 hour and 5 minute mark. But anyone have any questions? Anyone want to know anything? Pick my brain. Open book right here. Please don't be shy. But yeah, we gonna wrap up in a couple of minutes. But I appreciate y'all for coming out. Like, sounds like we got people from Jamaica, Nigeria, Toronto, all over the U.S. How do we, Orion the Hunter? Orion the Hunter. That's a sick name still. How do we get past the ATS? You get past the ATS by writing a good resume. The way that your question is formed, it sounds like you're asking me, how do I get past the AIs behind the ATS? And that's just a myth. There are no AIs behind the ATS. The AI functions are usually around operational. You know what I'm saying? Like, they help with like filing, and they help with maybe like streamlining the process, but it's actual people reading your resume and making that decision. This whole confusion around ATS, it's because when you get a rejection letter from a company, it's a templated message, and that templated message can sound robotic, right? And you can tell that it's a template, but it's not a robot rejecting you. It's somebody that actually like declined your resume, and that they sent out that rejection. You might have also answered what's called a knockout question incorrectly, which automatically puts you in that rejection pile. And again, that's more of a operational streaming thing. And an example of a knockout question that like is very common is, are you authorized to work in the country that you're applying for? And if you say no, there's no point in someone reading your resume unless they're offering visas. And most companies don't offer visas if they don't explicitly say to it. So I hope that answers your question. Jerome, you must get called Jermaine all the time because I always get called Jerome. How do you get a resume review? Is this a service you offer? I put out a call to action on Twitter, letting people know that they could send over their resumes and they'll be in the queue to get a resume review on live. The only thing I ask is for them to scrub their information from it. So you can definitely, if you send me a DM on LinkedIn, I'll give you the email to send your resume, and we can it'll be added to the queue. Alternatively, I do offer a resume writing service that does come with a review. And if you're on LinkedIn, you can just hit the book an appointment button on my LinkedIn profile, or just check out my website, jupiterhr.ca. But like, yeah, if you would like a free one, just DM me and I'll say the email to send it to. Thank you for coming through. Is there an AI tool that can help you tailor a resume based on a job description? It's fed, Chat GPT. But like the thing with like Chat GPT is that you still basically got to do a lot of tweaking with it, because AI hallucinations are a thing where the AI will like lie on your behalf. And B, you can tell when a resume is like Chat GPT-ish, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but like sometimes just like a lot of unnecessary fluff. So be careful when you're using that. Get it as like a foundation and then tweak it yourself. Okay. One last question from my man Q. I am aiming for a SOC analyst job. However, after talking to a couple of professionals in the industry, I've been told that I had a better chance of breaking the industry by landing a sysadmin or help desk role first. Would you agree? If not, how can I stand out project-wise as a candidate? For context, I'm a recent grad student. I'm pursuing my CC certification from the ISC2. I agree with them. So the reason why they're telling you that is that cybersecurity is a very insular industry, and what I mean by that is that in order for a lot of people to get their first cybersecurity job, they got to have certain foundations set up already, and in a lot of ways, they have to be able to be like doing cybersecurity work in the field, right, with stakes involved, right, and like not just all theoretical stuff. And one of the best ways to do that is to start out with a help desk, a network admin, a sysadmin, opportunity, networking engineering in some cases, anything that allows you to have like that foundational setup around like identity access management and just like overall logins and things like that. And a lot of times cybersecurity roles don't want to like cybersecurity jobs don't have the bandwidth to like ramp somebody up from the very, very beginning. If this was in terms of like Pokemon, right? Everybody that works in cybersecurity is a Charmeleon, right? And they're Charmeleons only. They don't start at Charmander, right? To be that Charmander, you got to like do the help desk thing, and then you got to level up to be a Charmeleon, and then you'll be eligible for those cybersecurity roles, especially for that SOC analyst role. So folks, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming through. This recording will be uploaded to the YouTube and will be shared. Feel free to rewatch it. FJA definitely just put up some really good advice for search for cybersecurity or for help desk and entry level sysad stuff. But once again, thank you all for coming through. Thank you for sharing with me. We will do this again sometime soon, and I hope you'll have a great rest of your night. Please feel free to rewatch this and take all the tips that you can. Feel free to resubmit your resumes when you tweak them, and we'll get through them in the queue, I promise. But thank you for coming through, and I hope you have a great night. Why can't